General MacArthur drops a atomic bomb.
The free nations face a worldwide threat. It must be met with a worldwide defense.
Hello everyone and welcome to Axis and Allies 1951. Today we're going to be taking a look at some of the updates we've made since our last playtest. Hello everyone. So starting off right away on the updates, the first thing that you'll notice is that we finally made some NATO markers. So now we now have markers to actually show what all the NATO nations are for the start of the game. Got up in Europe, Canada, Africa. And then we also were able to go and make some markers for SATO as well. I admit they're a little rough, but I mean, they're serving a purpose for right now. So one of the first changes we made is that there will no longer be any starting combat in southern Germany. We're just going to leave that one alone, but there still will be starting combat in Germany and Korea. So we have the starting combats there. That'll start the game off, and then it'll go right into the Soviet Union's turn. Next, during our playtest, we realized that these 3 Soviet submarines that we started in Sea Zone 127 don't really have a lot of time to really get into the game that well. So we decided to move them forward a little bit and get them started out way up in the North Sea. So that way it'll be easier for them to sort of come down into the Atlantic to try and stop NATO and the United States from getting reinforcements over to Europe in the first couple turns. Another thing we took out the reserve forces. When we were playing, we kind of kept forgetting about them, and they just didn't really seem to be serving a purpose. So we took out the reserve forces for the game. And then, let's see here, moving on, you'll notice that this fighter is sitting on top of a upside down marker. What this represents is jet fighters. So what we decided to do for this game is we decided to make jet fighters its own unit, because in the early 1950s, some militaries were still using props while other countries were using jets, and some countries were using a combination of both. So for right now, we have the upside down marker that marks a unit as a jet fighter. However, myself and Airsoft Commando do plan to actually buy jet fighter pieces from Historical Board Gaming, and hopefully we'll have that for our next play test. The stats for a jet as of right now, we have that it hits on a 4, defends on a 4. Its movement is 5 or 6. I'll have to double check on that. I think it's 5, but like I said, I'll have to double check. And then because we added the jet fighter, we did change up the fighter, and we did change up the regular fighter's stats. So for a regular fighter now, the regular fighter keeps its same stats. So it hits on a 3, defends on a 4, and moves at a 4. And then tactical bombers, theirs are the same with 3, 3, and 4. Now for IPC costs, a jet fighter will cost 11, while fighter and tactical bombers both cost 10. Also with Air Force, we did realize during our playtest that NATO kind of has too much of an advantage with the Air Force. While in actual history, yes, the NATO Air Forces did outnumber the Soviet Air Force, but how we had it set up and how we had it initially set up, NATO had too much. So we ended up reduced some of the NATO Air Force down. They still have a little bit more than Russia, but but we hope that with them being brought down a little bit, it might help the game a little bit more. Moving on, we did find that with SATO having a minor factory here in Siam, it really made the game very difficult for the Chinese player to get anywhere. So So we decided to remove it, and we're going to give it a shot in the next game to kind of see how it works. I myself kind of played around with it a little bit, and it seemed to be working, and it made it a little easier for China to play and not be so severely overwhelmed by the United States and Sado all at the same time. And then to kind of help the Russians, we did have a miner factory here in Transjordan. We decided to take that out because kind of for the same reasons. It kind of made it hard for the Russians to really play. So we've kind of just decided that, we'll take that miner factory out and then we'll see where it goes from there. A rule that we added, I don't think I mentioned it when we played it the first time, but we took this from Global War 36, is that the Suez Canal and the Panama Canal can be strategically bombed and closed off. And basically how the strategic bombing works for bombing canals works the same exact as regular strategic bombing in Axis and Allies when you're going after a industrial complex or any of the other buildings like the shipyards and the airfields and everything like that. Another rule that we added, and we're going to give this one a try, we call it disengage. So normally in Axis and Allies, and like most board games, if attacker attacks but doesn't want to continue, an attacker can retreat. For this game, we're going to try where the defender can also retreat. However, they can only retreat after the first round of combat, and when they retreat, all retreating units can still be rolled on, and on a roll of 1, a unit is destroyed. So there is a chance for the defender to pull back, regroup, but it could possibly cost him or her units if their opponent is lucky enough to roll some 1s. Let's see here. Because we made Sado its own group or its own player, we created a tech chart for them. Their tech chart is, for right now, EM2 assault rifles, just like the AK-47 and the EM2 for NATO, which allows infantry to hit on a 2 or less. And then, because we couldn't really think of anything, we just decided to give them a tech called long-range aircraft, and this only affects prop-driven aircraft. So only the tactical bombers and the fighters, and that just allows them to get the one extra space of range, because over here Sado has a lot of sea to cover in order to get aircraft over here to Southeast Asia to try and help fend off against the Chinese player. Moving on, we did change up China's tech a little bit. We kind of just decided that because China doesn't get atomic bombs till at least the 60s in our timeline, we just decided to do away with it, and instead to give them a little hand, we came up, we're using the tech called infantry conscription, which if China unlocks that, it drops the cost of infantry from 3 to 2. So it'll give China, it'll also help China a little bit in trying to fight off Sado in the United States. And then finally, our biggest change revolves the neutrals. So one thing that we realized in the game was that NATO was very surrounded by a lot of pro-neutral nations to them. So what we decided to do, and that basically because they were all pro-NATO, NATO really was really getting high IPCs, by turn 3, because they would just move into their pro-allied territories and collect the IPC and units from that. So what we decided to do is all the neutrals are strict. You can attack them. Neutrals still defend on a 3 or less, because as I explained before, for neutrals, though it is infantry, it represents the nation's full military. So we just decided to make neutrals will defend on a 3. As far as marking for right now, all the neutrals stay the same except for ones who were once owned by nations. They just have a nation marker flipped up that has a white bottom. And then if you attack a neutral, it doesn't change the status of the neutral of all the rest of the neutral nations, so they don't become pro-communist or pro-allied. They just all stay strict. We may maybe later on we'll kind of we'll decide if we want to change that a little bit and maybe make, have some sort of penalty for attacking neutrals. But as of right now, that's just kind of where we have it set up. Oh, I see I missed putting some NATO markers on a couple places, but that's all right. So that's all the updates we have for right now. If you like the video, give it a like, share it, comment if you have any questions. And I think for right now, we're planning mid-October for the next major play test. So stay tuned for that. And I should be posting some other updates before then. So have a good day, everybody. Take care. Bye.